Academy podcast. This is Michael Roper, and you're listening to episode number 503. Now, today's title is going to be From Reactive to Strategic, Building the Future Ready Facilities Team. Now, in today's topic, we're going to move from firefighting mode, putting out fires within the building, all these problems we have, to becoming a strategic partner within our organizations and aligning ourselves with maybe some company goals and visions here. Now, we're going to walk through what this transformation might look like, also why it's critical in today's time, and then how you can build a future-ready facilities team, some tips on how to do that. Now, if you want to rewatch this video or maybe forward it to somebody else, all of our episode resources are available at podcast.smartbuildingsacademy.com/503. That's how you'll get to this episode today, 503. Okay, so let's start by breaking down what we're going to cover today in this episode. We're going to start by talking about the reactive maintenance trap, okay? And then we're going to define what strategic facility management really means. And then we'll hit the 6 steps to a future-ready team and some tips on how to get your facilities team ready to go. And last, we're going to be talking about the role of leadership and how important that is and how that can really make or break how your building is run. And then we'll get into the final thoughts and kind of wrap up there. Okay, so let's go ahead and begin by talking about, what is, reactive maintenance. Now, this goes on a lot in building systems as we see because mainly, we're short-staffed. We don't have the labor or the technicians and the people to do this. So usually it's going to be reactive. So we're just going to repair things as they break. So basically, this is going to be an example of unplanned work. All right. Frequent tenant complaints. You spend your day basically responding to cold calls. All right. Alarms or emergencies. So your alarm log and your building automation system is filled up. There's tons of alarms that have to be acknowledged. So those things are popping up, and we're just kind of putting out the fires, like we said in the intro. There's also emergency repairs. Emergency repairs are very expensive. Number one, sometimes these things break on the weekends. Think about that. That's going to be time and a half if you have to outsource that, or maybe even double time on a holiday. So it's very expensive to do that. Also, if it's done within the work week, your tenants are going to complain. They might even be sent home. So that's not good either, because if the conditions are too bad in the building, they can't work there. So emergency repairs are a big deal. So when there's little planning, there's little documentation too as well. And often this causes a lot of stress. We've all been there before when we're trying to troubleshoot a system and we can't find the schematic or some kind of documentation we need to get some information to provide a solution. I've been there too before. So sometimes if there's no documentation, that really affects how fast we can fix the problem. So it's just how teams end up and when they lack time, training, or even systems. All right, so let's talk about the cost of reactivity. Let's talk about why it's not good to be reactive. So operating reactively, like I said before, is expensive. You're not just dealing with repairs, you're absorbing the cost of even wasted energy. Okay, there could be wasted energy. Maybe a pump got left on and it should have been turned off. Okay, and it broke because of that. You're absorbing the cost of that wasted energy. Maybe it's shortened equipment life too as well. Okay, so equipment's going to fail faster if it's not, have regular maintenance checks on it and the upkeep that's required. Think about a chiller that has required preventative maintenance tasks throughout its life cycle, and if it's not done, it's going to shorten that lifespan, and then the replacement cost is really going to dig into the budgets of your building system. Okay. Also, you get a burned out staff. The staff's, a lot of them that I've seen, they're overworked. They're going around the building, trying to fix everything they can. They're working hard. So it's just, they get burnt out after a while. They just get tired, okay, mentally and also physically. All right. So there's a lot of stress on a lot of facility maintenance teams, and sometimes they get burned out, and that's why there's high turnover in our business sometimes. They're going to go do something else that's not as stressful, and they have the manpower to help perform whatever they're supposed to do. Leadership doesn't always get clean data. So, a lot of times the technicians might not have time to fill out a maintenance log, or they might not have a process in place to fill out and document when things go wrong. So leadership doesn't really know what's going on at all times. I mean, if you just try to fix, 10 or 12 things a day, you might not document all that, and the leadership doesn't know what all has been done. So in the long run, your team looks like pretty much like a cost center and not really a strategic asset. So you're just really uh, draining a lot of cost into repairing and replacing equipment and things like that. So technicians are running call to call, no time to document, no time to think is my last bullet here. So think about like if a chill water pump goes out and it keeps going out again and again, you have to keep replacing it or something like that. So the team's going to jump into action. Maybe it's just blowing a breaker at the breaker panel. So you just replace that, or maybe just replace a fuse on a condensing unit. So no one has time to ask why it failed. We're just like in reactive mode, and we're just putting out the fire, and we're just going to replace the fuse or replace the circuit breaker. We don't know. Maybe that pump, maybe there's a clogged strainer, and it's getting too much. It's backing up the flow, and there's too much force on that pump, so that's why it's failing. That's why it's tripping the breaker. That's why you're having to replace pumps often. So as you can see here, if there was a preventative maintenance schedule on there to kind of track maybe flows, maybe track the strainer, make sure it's cleaned out on a regular basis in the system. So things like that can help the system, and it can eliminate the loop of reactivity, just reacting to an issue versus thinking ahead and seeing what we can do ahead of time so it doesn't cause a failure. Okay, so that's the cost of reactivity. Now, we're going to talk about the shift to strategic. So a strategic facility management team doesn't wait for systems to fail. So we're going to be proactive. So we're going to be doing regular preventative maintenance checks. We're going to be documenting information, and making sure leadership is aware of things. They prevent failure by being proactive. They align their operations with business goals, all right? And using that data to also drive those decisions. So you might be incorporating AI in your company to predict failures in the future. You might be using it for energy reduction, things like that. So it's a complete shift in the mindset from the day-to-day chaos to now going to like more long-term planning. So, and this is powered by data. So maybe it's trend data from your building automation system, or it could be some kind of special facility software or a dashboard that you're using. So let's look at some traits of a strategic team. Okay, so strategic teams prioritize preventative maintenance. I know I keep saying that, but it's really important to do that. And they also use predictive maintenance tools to also catch problems early. So we live in a modern society with new technology. There's a lot of predictive maintenance that we can do. We can do twin modeling with AI and things like that to see how we can decrease energy consumption. We can also predict if things might fail in the future with AI. So these are going to be some things we're going to see more and more as the technology advances. And it's really going to help us in our maintaining our buildings. So they also use dashboards too and analytics like we just talked about. This could be energy analytics. I mean, it could be like preventive maintenance type dashboards, anything like that to help your building system. They also do cross-departmental alignment. So that means we're going to align with departments like IT. Okay, so how is our system aligning with IT? Building automation obviously has a lot of equipment now and controllers that are IP based, and we do align with IT directly. Okay, it might even be finance. So maybe the finance department has a goal to reduce energy consumption by 5% every year or something like that. Maybe there's some goals. So you're working with the finance team in your company to do that in the maintenance department. Okay, maybe it's also to reduce the replacement cost of equipment to make our equipment last longer. If we buy a chiller, the average lifespan is 15 to 20 years. We want to make sure that it stays within that lifespan. Okay, we don't want it to go fall below that, or that's going to mess up the financial goals in the company. Could even be HR. All right. So that could be, something within your facility team that you're trying to keep your team, from leaving you, number one, and then also keep them happy to work within your team. KPIs, this stands for key performance indicators. All right. And, this can align with finance or HR or even IT or whatever other department. As a whole company, as an organization, these are going to track real data such as uptime, like how is there any downtime with your equipment? It'll track that, and also how long it's up, okay, and operating in a normal manner. Also, energy use. We talked about that too. That's a key performance indicator too, is energy usage. A lot of companies today, as you know, as you're listening to this, that's a big deal to reduce energy cost. Okay, that's going to be natural gas, like on our heating systems, the boilers and things like that. This can even participate in domestic side, not really even like on the HVAC side. Electricity is a big deal too. Most of our equipment runs on electricity. So we're going to try to reduce kilowatt hour usage and things like that. Response time is also a key performance indicator. So as a facility manager or building engineer, we're really aware, and we're trying to respond in a time to help our tenants perform the duties they need to within their buildings. They have a job too. If they're going to be hot in their space, or maybe there's too much CO2 and they're getting headaches, they're not going to be very productive. Sometimes they might even get sick and go home. So that's going to reduce even more production from their side. So we want to make sure response time is up and we fix things quickly so the tenants in the building can keep operating and keep the business functional, and make sure they make enough money. Okay, analogy. So here's an analogy that says it really good. So think about reactive maintenance is just waiting on your tire until it goes flat on the highway. So you got a slow leak on your tire. You just keep putting air in it to get you by. And that's kind of what reactive is. We're just airing it up, and we're just going to wait till it blows out. We know there's a nail in it or something, but we know we can get by just airing it up just a little bit here and there. We should be fine. So that's a reactive. Strategic means we're going to be monitoring the pressure. Okay, most cars today have the tire pressure monitoring system, right? That's kind of like aligns with the building automation system. We can actually see data. We can monitor that data, and we can make sure that if we're seeing a problem, that if we can foresee a problem in the future, we can go and fix it right now. So that's like the monitoring pressure in a tire. We can also rotate the tires. I mean, that's like rotating equipment, right? Rotating chillers, that helps out, with energy usage. It extends the lifespan of your equipment, things like that. And then plan the trip. Okay, things like that. Just planning things out, documenting, making sure there's a plan in place. Okay. So now let's keep going on. I think I have the same slide here, so we'll just we'll skip over that one. There we go. All right, so now we're going to go to steps to a future ready team. So we're going to go over these 6 steps here. So we're going to start with assessing the current state of your team, seeing where your team is. I mean, you might have a team of maybe 2 guys, or you might have a team of 10. I've seen it all from the buildings I've been to, working in this industry. We're going to talk about upskilling your team, some things we could do to upskill them to make sure they're going to be successful, comfortable, safe as they're working in your building. And then leverage technology. So this is a big deal, especially today. We need to use technology to our advantage, So that's another thing that we need to do, and create standard operating procedures. This is the documentation part. This is the procedure part, okay? So just creating processes are a big deal. We do that at SBA here a lot too, when we're creating curriculums. We started out not with too many processes, but as we started creating processes, it makes things so much easier, quicker and more efficient. Measuring performance. This is another documentation step that's very important to measure performance. Maybe we want to measure tenant complaints. We want to reduce those. We want to measure uptime and downtime. We might want to measure energy usage. Okay, things like that. Align with organizational goals. We keep talking about that, but we're going to align with, with the finance department, the COO, the chief operating officer. Maybe they have some goals they want to do with the business as far as the operations go. So that's really important too to talk about. So let's start out with assessing the current state. All right. So this is going to be the technicians that you have within your department. So we're going to start by auditing where you are at here. So we're going to audit the skills inventory. All right. So what skills do your in-house team have? Do they have the proper computer skills, the basic computer skills? Maybe just to use a user interface on a building automation system. We live in a world of IP addresses and IP controllers everywhere, servers. With the forthcoming of AI, it's going to get even more. So, do they understand what IT is? Do they understand subnetting, for example, and things like that? Just some basic things they need to know when they get out there. Maintenance breakdown. All right. Look how many tasks are planned versus reactive. Okay. So that's something you can keep track of and seeing if what you're doing preventative maintenance checks on, what you're not, and see how that relates to equipment breakdown and equipment replacement. Okay. Gaps in the process. We talked about this a little bit earlier. Do you have standard operating procedures? Okay. That's what an SOP is. So these are just procedures like, what are you going to do during a maintenance check on an air handler, for example? What steps are you going to take? What procedures are we going to do? When are we going to do that? And who's going to do it? Okay, these are going to be the procedures on what that looks like. What systems are being undocumented when we work on them too? That's another one. So if we're just going over there and just putting out fires and we're not documenting any timesheet or any detail on what was done, we need to see if we could catch that would be good, because then we can start enforcing that in the future to hopefully get ahead of the problem before it becomes a bigger problem. Okay, and then also we have tribal knowledge. So how many people hold critical knowledge in their heads? Okay, that's something that's not written down. That's something that's not in a process. So that could be like a risk. Okay, this is just something that's passed down from from person to person. Through word of mouth, okay, or as they train people as they're doing it, but there's no documentation of it. Phil and I, at SBA, we're, everybody here, we're really big into, recording everything, okay? Everybody has a smartphone usually these days with video capability, very good video capability, might I add. And you can basically, as you're going through this, have your technician film you troubleshooting the system. And then you could put that video in some kind of database, okay? And you can just name it, say, this is how you do a maintenance check on an air handler. You can literally record someone going through the steps if you need to train a new person. Or if there's something really critical, like maybe learning about subnetting or how a server works, or IP addressing, that can also be done in a video, okay? If that knowledge is held by somebody within your company, make sure that gets documented either, if that's maybe through, oops, looks like I got step 2 out of place here. Actually, step 3, leverage technology. Okay. Well, my PowerPoint is a little bit out of sort here, but I'm just going to continue on upskilling and training here. So training your team is the foundation. Okay. They need to understand BAS systems. So this can include control systems, like we all know. Sometimes that takes a long time to learn. Usually, if you're going to be learning without going to a specific class like Smart Buildings Academy, it's going to take about 2 to 3 years to get someone confident and to being independently going out and troubleshooting, starting up systems, programming, things like that. You can do it even faster if you go into a program like we have. Maybe 11 weeks, you can hit the ground running pretty quickly and get about 2 years of experience, in that period of time. But it does take time to do that, is my point in that whole story there that I just told. IP networking, we talked about that a little bit. That's a complicated subject sometimes. And that kind of blends in with analytics, all right? So analytics is going to be like AI. It could be fed into an AI system. So they're going to have to know about cloud-based systems and how that works today. Because a lot of times you'll see this in the future more when the technology becomes more advanced and more reliable, I guess you could say. This is going to be a powerful tool for maintaining a building system. Okay, so understanding how to read dashboards, how to maybe modify a dashboard, how to acknowledge an alarm on a building automation system, basic things like that. Soft skills matter too a lot. We get this a lot from our customers recommending or just requesting, how can we increase our soft skills? Okay, and so they can document the work, communicate findings, how to communicate. Communication's a very important part of our business, whether that be verbal communication or even written communication as well. So those are soft skills that need to be worked on within departments too as well. And this really helps make the future ready teams and sets them apart from a reactive team. Okay, so let's talk about some things, some tools we can use to leverage technology. Modern teams use to manage complexity. It could be a good CMMS system, and that's essential for asset tracking and preventative maintenance. Okay, so CMMS system, you can do that, and that's going to help directly with preventative maintenance. This will help you do this. I mean, you can look on the screen and you can just set up your maintenance task, and then you can also even better make sure these are checked off when they're done, and make sure accountability is up to speed on that too as well. We talked about BAS tools like analytics. So a lot of these dashboards have built-in analytics that detect issues before the failure. We talked about the AI, things like that. BAS tools with built-in analytics can detect before failure for failure detection. And also alarm dashboards. This is really important too. This helps teams detect alarms when they're coming in, and it's going to help us keep that uptime positive for the building and decrease the downtime. So these alarms will allow us to see what's going on. I mean, there could be an air handler down for hours if you didn't get an alarm, but the minute you have a supply fan failure, you're going to get that alarm, and then you'll know you need to go react to that pretty quickly. Okay, so that helps on reaction time. So create SOPs. This is standard operating procedures. So this takes the guesswork out of operations. They can create consistency, they reduce errors, and they're crucial for training the new staff. Okay, so you got to have these standard operating procedures. It really helps the efficiency and just document everything from startup to shutdown. Okay, so these can include things like a daily checklist. So this just makes it really great for especially new employees. A daily checklist. Okay, I want you to go over here, and this can be on the CMMS software too as well, to create these checklists on a daily basis. That way you don't have to do it every day. But this will help them understand what is expected out of them, and it helps them be more accountable for getting the work done. Okay, because if they don't know what they're supposed to do, they might have a general idea and what you expect of them, but if they don't understand exactly what that is, it might not get done. Okay. Also, seasonal procedures are important for this. When are we going to have to do the, if you have a 2-pipe system, when are we going to do the changeover? Okay. When are we going to clean out the cooling tower basin? Okay. We're going to do that in the fall, in the spring. Okay. So things like that, we need to know what seasonal procedures are going on. All right. What outside air temp makes it go into economizer mode? That's another example. Alarm workflows. All right. What happens whenever we have a critical alarm? What if the chiller goes down? Who's going to go work on it? Is it going to be the new guy that just, showed up and came, a couple weeks ago? Or are we going to let only the experienced technician go out there? Or are we going to outsource it to a vendor? Okay. Whoever, or the manufacturer of the chiller. Okay, so that's going to be the alarm workflows. Who's going to address what alarm and when and how quickly are we going to address that alarm? Okay, what's our goal to hit an alarm? Okay, is it within 24 hours or maybe, an hour? Okay, it depends on the facility. It depends on your company goals. Commissioning and turnover. Okay. So basically, this is going to be, commissioning equipment. Maybe it's recommissioning an air handler or a VAV box, just to make sure everything's working properly. Maybe calibrate some things, and turnover. Measurement. Okay, measure what matters. All right. So preventive maintenance percentage completion. All right. So we're going to be talking about, how much preventive maintenance is completed. Okay. Make sure we record that and measure it. Downtime hours. This is important too. This could align with company goals as well. How much downtime did we have this year? Okay. And how can we prevent that from happening in the future? Okay. Energy. This is a big deal. So we got to measure what matters. Your company obviously probably has some energy goals, how much they are allowed to spend every year. So how much energy are you using per square foot? That might be a way to start a measurement standard in your company. All right. And you can get on ASHRAE and things like that to kind of see what, some typical small, medium, and large building systems look like as far as what energy consumption looks like per square foot. And that also depends on your geographical location as well. Obviously, some states are going to have higher energy costs than others. Okay. Things like that. Response times, that's a big deal too, to keep our tenants happy, to keep them in the building, keep them productive and working. That's our main deal. We don't want them, complaining too much. We don't want them going to another business. Okay. Well, you can lose good talent in your company. We don't want to do that. They can also get sick. All right. When they're sick, they're not going to show up to work like we talked about before. So we want them to be healthy. We want them to be happy. So that response time is huge to make sure they're comfortable in the building. Okay. Aligning with business goals. I keep talking about this, but this is important too, because your business, obviously, that you work for has goals. Every organization has priorities. So your job is to align your facility management strategy with those priorities. For example, like in a hospital, uptime is everything. Okay. We can't have a surgery room go down. Okay. If it does, we got to get it up very quickly. All right. In a school, indoor air quality is a big deal, and comfort, of course, as well. But indoor air quality, humidity is not good in a school. That's going to decrease their retention rates. Obviously, they're going to get sick and go home. They're going to get too many absences. The parents are going to complain, and it's not going to be a good deal. Maybe it's CO2 is an issue. They're starting to get sick, headaches. They're sick. They're tired. They're sleeping in class. So things like that can contribute to uptime. And learn to speak in terms of outcomes, not just tasks. So, show your team how they support it, support these issues, support the company goals here, and speak their language. Okay. Here's some tips, a few tips on how to get started. Don't try to change everything all at once. Okay. Don't try to be, going over there and just revamping everything at once. Just pick a system is what I'd recommend. Just pick maybe the air side system. If you're working with HVAC, for example, just pick 1 or 2 air handlers and work with those, and then add some air handlers as you go on. Make the processes for those, the standard operating procedures and processes on how you do preventative maintenance. Okay. Focus on getting one win, like reducing some alarms in a month. Maybe you can reduce your monthly alarms by 50% or 20% even. That would be a great goal to have within your company. That's great. Even preventative maintenance compliance. I mean, see how many preventative maintenance tasks you can knock out. This might even validate, if you go up to upper leadership, if you can hire more technicians, which would be great. You can show them how the preventative maintenance can help reduce energy cost and also replacement cost of equipment. Okay, by having another technician doing preventative maintenance, you can actually recoup that money and keep your tenants happy at the same time as well. Track and share progress. This is good too. Obviously, we want to track any kind of audits that we do, trends, energy consumption, customer complaints, And then we're going to share it, like I said before. If you can show them, how long this piece of equipment lasted or how much energy you're saving, that can help you maybe get another technician on staff. Okay. Because if you have more trained technicians and they're not burnt out, they're just doing preventative maintenance checks mostly and preventing failures before they become bigger issues, that's obviously going to help you. And then iterate. Okay. Once we get a system in place that's good and we know it works, then we can keep doing it over and over again. Repeat, recycle, whatever they say. I forgot. I don't even know what that saying is, but just repeat it, whatever that is. Okay. So conclusion. So we talked about today, move from firefighter mode, putting out fires, to a strategist. Okay. From repair tech to a systems thinker. All right. That's the whole goal, what we need to do here. So this transformation starts with a mindset shift. Stop being the firefighter. Start thinking like a systems strategist. And the work is the same, but the approach is radically different, obviously. All right. Well, that pretty much wraps up our episode here. Thank you very much for joining me on this episode of the Smart Buildings Academy podcast. If this episode helped you, please leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcast or Spotify. And if you're watching this on YouTube, please like, comment, and also subscribe. And if you'd like to re-listen to this or forward this to someone else, you can find the full podcast at podcast.smartbuildingsacademy.com/503. All right, well, that wraps this one up. We'll see you on the next one. And remember, stay smart and stay strategic when you're addressing your building systems.